I'm Nathan Ponchard, this is Chasing Cars, and this is the new generation A90 Toyota GR Supra. And so is that one out there. It's been 17 years since this car was last officially on sale and 26 years since you could last buy one in Australia, yet the Supra has never really gone away. For generations, fanboys and girls have kept the Supra and this car's legacy alive, hence why so much rides on the pumped haunches of this muscular beast. It took a joint venture with BMW to bring the Supra back, and much is shared with Toyota Sports Coupe and BMW Z4 Roadster. In terms of structure, it's the 2470mm wheelbase, it's the door handles and the clamshell bonnet, it's the location of the A-pillars and the fuel tank, and it's the design of the drivetrain and the suspension that is shared between the Supra and the Z4. In fact, dashboard aside, they're actually quite different. Now, while there are those structural similarities under the skin, it's on the exterior that the Supra really does look quite different. It might have the same clamshell bonnet as the BMW, but it has a different cut line the way that it closes. The door handles might be the same, and even this little scoop in the window line here, but the door shape itself was unique to both cars. And while the A-pillars are the same, this is a hardtop and not a roadster. So it's a completely different style of car. This one here is the $95,000 Supra GTS, and of the orders so far, apparently this fills up 80% of what Aussie buyers want. Externally, the easiest way to tell is that it has forged 19-inch wheels, red brake calipers at the front, and it also has slightly bigger brakes at the back. The GTS is also the only model to get Nürburgring grey matte paint as an option, which helps the car really stand out, even more so than its double bubble roof and its ducktail spoiler. In terms of design, a lot of the Supra is BMW, including these really cool frameless doors. You can't have a sports coupe without frameless doors, in my opinion. Most of the switchgear in this car is BMWs, either from current BMWs or past ones, but either way, the quality of the interior design of this car is actually really good. I don't think there's anything wrong with a Toyota sharing stuff with a German car, because much of it is superior to what Toyotas have. The main difference in the car is the steering wheel design and the instrument cluster. One of the main differences in the interior is the steering wheel. It's a completely different design to a BMW M wheel, and it is thin and fat exactly where you want it. The Boss, being a big chunky thing, is fine, but the rim is just so good to hold. The instrument pack is also completely different in the Toyota, and that's also a good thing because it's easier to read than the BMWs and it looks more naturally Japanese. Now, the quality of this interior, this car is built in the Magna-Steyr factory in Austria, is really, really good. It doesn't probably blow you away with a touch of its plastics, but there's a cohesion to the way everything is built in this car, and the design of it is nice and sleek. I wouldn't say that it's a practical car to be in because, you know, you've got these tiny little door pockets here and a little net on the side here, but that's about it. Two cup holders in the center and a little tray in here to hold your phone with a USB port. But I don't know, generally for a car like this, that's not what it's about. And the fact that it has two cup holders that work is more than most other sports cars. It also has a rear tailgate and a 290-litre boot. And also these seats, which electrically adjust every which way, including the bolsters in the side, are really good at accommodating all body types. And I think sitting in this car is a great place to be. This GTS model here has a JBL stereo with a lot more speakers than the GT, but both of them are still pretty good. And in general, other than a few bits and pieces of tinsel, the GT and the GTS both offer a lot of equipment for the 85 to 95 grand Toyota's charging. There are two variants in the A90 Supra lineup, an entry-level GT and a high-spec GTS, both sharing a BMW designed but Toyota tuned 3-litre straight six with a single twin-scroll turbocharger, each driving the rear wheels through a ZF 8-speed automatic transmission. Toyota claims the 1495 kilo Supra is good enough for 0 to 100 in 4.3 seconds, which is a little bit faster than the Z4 Roadster and is certainly quick. Now, we're driving on these great Gippsland back roads in Victoria, and mostly in normal for the adaptive damping, because you can adjust the steering, the damping, the ESC tune and the transmission cal, and sport mode is just a little bit too abrupt and pitchy in Australia, whereas this normal mode allows this car to breathe quite nicely on these roads that really are quite bumpy. Another difference between this and the BMW 2 is that while we're facing a wheel that is kind of covered in BMW-ish switchgear, it actually has a really nice thin rim and somewhere to put your thumbs around it, not this massive python that BMW seems obsessed with putting in M cars. We're also looking at Toyota's own instrument pack, which has a big central tacho, a little digital speedo to the side, and I really like it. It looks Japanese, but it's also classy, while all the other smaller stuff is all BMW, as is the rest of the switchgear in this car. And I don't think that's a criticism, because it's nicer than Toyota's. There, I said it. And the way the engine drives, sure, it has this synthesized induction sound over the top of it when it's revving, especially in sport mode, but there's a lovely torquey lustiness to the way this engine performs that you can just leave it in normal mode. You don't need to have it in sport all the time to do that, because while this car does have a lot of sports tuning in its DNA and is in its chassis setup, it actually is best, it works best as a Grand Tourer. Underneath this car, the Supra shares a lot of its suspension hardware with the new Z4, although it is all tuned by Toyota, and apparently they had a large hand in deciding how wide the track widths were and how long the wheelbase was, because they wanted to achieve the golden ratio, which is 1.6 to 1 in terms of wheelbase versus track width, and apparently that is the same as a Porsche 911s, and it's meant to achieve a combination of short wheelbase agility in terms of turning and stuff, but having a wide track width that gives it stability at the same time. Now, a Ferrari 488 is 1.59, so the Supra's pretty close, and a Toyota 86 is 1.68. So, if you believe the numbers, this thing has the architecture and the core dynamic DNA to make it a great handling car. Now, on the roads that we've driven here today, it just has this easygoing suaveness about it when driving it in normal mode. It's easy to place, it feels nicely planted, it doesn't smack you in the face with its overtly sporting nature, despite the fact that that's what Toyota and a lot of the others are claiming this car is capable of, that it's a neck-snapping sports car, and it's not. It's just a really quick sporting coupe slash GT, and I think that's where the essence of this is. 4.3 to 100, I don't know, dare I say it, isn't really that amazing anymore, because, you know, an A45 can do under 4 now, and a 911 turbo can probably do a 3, who knows, I don't know, depending on the weather. I think the automatic transmission in the car is seamless and generally excellent, but what the engine in this car really deserves is a 6-speed manual transmission to use all that lusty, chubby torque that this 250 kilowatt, 500 newton meter, 3-litre straight 6 produces. We haven't driven at the racetrack yet, and I'm Phillip, and I'm sure this transmission could probably be left in drive in sport mode and do it all for you. But I still feel, and I'm sure a lot of other people feel this way, including a shit ton of Americans, that they want to change gears themselves. And I think letting this thing wind out in second or third would be really lovely. We're in the top spec GTS here, and it does have a slightly different brake package to what the base GT has, and it does have lower profile, larger 19-inch wheels rather than the 18s with the same Michelin Pilot Sports as the regular Supra. But even on these wheels, and they are forged, which I suppose might make them a little bit lighter, they're, and here we go, not slow. Yeah, it rides really well. It's a really nice GT, and you've got nice seats where you can adjust the bolsters, and you've got a pretty good view with quite a flat bonnet with 2 little lumps on either side. I can see out the heart-shaped rear window really easily. The mirrors are nice and big and practical. Now, the one thing about driving in sport compared to normal in terms of the drivetrain setup is that it adds this extra crackle to the exhaust on overrun. Now, if you just go down a few gears, there we go. A little bit of Golf R realness in a straight 6 Toyota. And it does have this lovely, creamy, oh there you go, 6850 is what an upshift's at. People have criticised the new Supra for sounding a little bit too much like a BMW. But back in the day when Toyota used to produce their own straight 6s, they used to be said that they were a little bit BMW-esque in their character. So I can't see how that's anything but a positive for the new car. And this engine really suits the dynamics of the car, the sound of the car. It's just nice to have a straight six back in a Toyota. Australia is not getting the 4-cylinder versions as yet, and given that of the orders that have been put in for this car so far, of which I think someone said they'd sold 150 cars in 22 minutes online, and the first 12 months allocation is only 300, 80% of those are the top spec GTS, which is 95 grand, which is what we're driving here. So it makes you beg the question, why do we need the 4-cylinder? Everybody wants the 6, and for good reason. The new generation Supra has been a long time coming, but as a halo beginning for Toyota's GR brand, and the first in what Toyota promises will be an extensive array of GR models, it's a really impressive beginning. Here at Phillip Island Raceway, you can really feel the agility enhancing benefits of its short wheelbase and its golden ratio stance. And it's proof that this car is actually a genuine all-rounder, one that has the poise and panache to also be a track day tearaway.